and very glad to report is that on the digital payments front, on the customer side, during the April to June quarter, about 18 lakh transactions have taken place. Customers have done 18 lakh transactions on our digital platform, which has gone up to 22 lakhs in the July-September quarter. And we hope to sustain this digital payments mode, which going forward, we are able to handle this and increase this contribution in the payment side. We expect to see stabilization or reduction in our collection costs going forward. Thanks to the untiring efforts of our collection teams, we continue to improve our asset quality. Gross stage 3 delinquencies reduced to 6.67% as against 7.28% in Q1 and 8.69% a year ago. This improvement, substantial in itself, is even more commendable because had we factored in the effect of the Supreme Court direction allowing GNPA forbearance up to 31st August, our gross stage 3 would have been lower at 5.98%. We improved upon our provision coverage ratio as well to 54% in Q2 versus 50% in Q1. Based on improving business metrics, almost normal collection efficiency and good progress on the asset quality front, we moderated our additional COVID provisioning to 101 crore in this quarter. Our overall COVID-related provisioning thus stands at 707 crores, which is almost close to 2.6% of our book. Our asset yields too improved by 32 bps sequentially to 19.99% in Q2, aided by the growth in the two-wheeler and the pre-owned two-wheeler portfolio. And NIMs improved by 38 bps to 12.58%. Our pre-provision profits thus grew almost 5% annually to over 8%. Impairments and write-offs came up sharply over the last quarter, and ROA was a healthy 3.44%. We are climbing back up the ROE ladder as well and closed the quarter with this number at 13.63%. Capital adequacy is at 30.14% and is robust, and our leveraging at less than 3 times allows us enough maneuverability while negotiating incremental debt. We were strong on the resources front too and raised fresh funding of 3,147 crores in the quarter, besides possessing a liquidity buffer of 2,619 crores in free unencumbered assets and 730 crores in SLR investments. Bank funding is our mainstay and formed almost half of our liability mix. Retail fixed deposits, the other integral component in our resource mix, grew to 22% of our liabilities, and I take this opportunity to thank our family of over 2 lakh depositors for continuing to repose their faith in us. On the deposit front, I'm also glad to inform that we have actually launched an online and app-based FD facility where customer can buy an FD in about 5 minutes. And we have also launched a recurring deposit facility for our existing customers. Basically, this has been launched because there was a lot of demand from our existing depositors for a recurring deposit product. We have launched this in July, and we have reached about 10 crores of online deposit in September. Going forward, we are looking at about 25-30 crores on a month-on-month basis from this line by about March. We have also launched a B2B application which to facilitate our channel partners to launch deposits, to sell fixed deposits, to which hoping that will substantially improve our fixed deposit base and also lower our procurement cost of deposits. On the regulatory front, while RBI has permitted lending institutions to restructure loan accounts affected by COVID, we do not see or we do not envisage having to restructure too many of our loans. The numbers could be less than 1% of the customer base, And the amount could be, we are not looking at, probably our estimate could be anywhere between 100, at best 100, 150 crores of loans to be restructured. And this possibly could be extended to residential hotels, standalone hospitals, some schools and garment retailers. We have relatively small exposure to this segment as well as to manufacturing. The majority of our borrowers, including SME customers, have indicated to us that they would regularize payments in the normal course of their loan tenors or with minor extensions thereto. Our subsidiary Shriram Housing merits a special mention in my opening remarks. SHFL has done a wonderful job this quarter, pretty much in continuation of what we have been doing over the last couple of years. We have registered a highest ever loan disbursement in Q2, apart from growing the PAT by 142% year on year and 200% quarter on quarter. The AUM too grew at 48% annually and stands at 2,779 crores. And we did this with the best of the asset quality ever at 2.2% gross stage 3. Shriram Housing also had a high collection efficiency of over 94% in September, and we are comfortable in liquidity with rupees 692 crores of reserve funds. We also have taken rapid strides in data analytics and digitizing certain areas of the business operations. Shriram Housing has also has some expansion plans and are looking at adding another 10 branches in the next 2 quarters. I'm also happy to inform that the board has declared an interim dividend of 100%, and that we are back on the dividend track. With this, I would now open the floor for questions.
Thank you very much. We will now begin the question and answer session. Anyone who wishes to ask a question may press star and 1 on their touchtone telephone. If you wish to remove yourself from the question queue, you may press star and 2. Participants are requested to use handsets while asking a question. Ladies and gentlemen, we will wait for a moment while the question queue assembles. The first question is from the line of Sanket Chheda from B&K Securities. Please go ahead.
Hi, good morning, sir. So my question was that on AUM side, the AUM has been consolidating since last 8 quarters. So we see it halting here and maybe growth in the second half. That's my first question. And the second was on credit rating downgrade that we had received in this quarter, mainly on the data of non-paying pool, which was there in July and August. But since in September, our collections has been much stronger. We see that rating upgrade come back. Yeah, those were the 2 questions.
On the AUM side, see, we have degrown in the first 2 quarters. So what we are looking at for the end of the financial year would be, so probably we will make up for the degrowth, and at the end of March we should be either flat or we should be growing by about 2-3%. We are not looking at too much of a growth for the current financial year in view of the SME being conservative on SME portfolio. So the 2 quarters, if you look at quarter on quarter, probably we will grow the AUM, but then it will be neutralized by the degrowth in the first 2 quarters. That's one. On the downgrade, see, we had a AA plus only from CARE, and it's more of a, I think, if you ask me personally, I don't think it's more of a, I won't call it as a downgrade, because to be very honest with you, we felt it's not the right time for a rating exercise, because this was done in the month of August. Not even post. They have not. The events post COVID were also not looked at, and September was not even closed. What I'm saying here is, we felt it's not fair because you cannot judge how your business is without seeing at least a quarter of performance post-moratorium. But anyway, if you look at my other ratings, they are all, none of them have shown any concern. So either CRISIL or ICRA, they are all at the same level. And we are also talking to CARE on this.
Okay. And sir, my last questions on the Shriram Housing bit. So in this business, I guess we have disbursed the highest ever in this quarter. Yeah. So my question is that if you see the yields have also moved up quite sharp, even on sequential basis, which have reached to about 20%. They had reached 20% in 2-3 quarters back also, but I just wanted to have some light. Who are your customers here, and why are the yields so high in a housing business?
No, probably the yield is basically it's a one-off. It's not this thing. It's because they have done a assignment. They have done an assignment of portfolio, and since the income is booked upfront, the yield looks like that. But the average yield will be around 13.5 to 14%, between 13 to 14%.
Okay, sure, sir. Thanks, and best of luck for the quarters ahead.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Aditya Singhania from Enam Holdings. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Good morning to all. Sir, I wanted to check, you mentioned that if it were not for the Supreme Court circular, your gross NPAs would actually have been lower. I could understand that.
What I was saying is, if it was, if you have taken the Supreme Court guidance, it would have been lower.
Oh, okay.
See, I said the delinquency has reduced to 6.67%.
Right.
As against 7.28 in Q1. It would have been lower at 5.98 if you had taken the guidance.
So you have not taken that into account?
Not taken that. We have put it as a part of the notes. We have not taken it in the books, but we have mentioned these numbers as part of our notes to the accounts.
Okay.
That's what the guidance is also.
Sure. So this and, along with, the improvement in stage 3 or gross NPAs, despite actual decline in loan book, of course, there's the moratorium which also has a role to play, but still it seems to be a substantial improvement in asset quality. And along with the 95% collection in September, could you give a sense of what you have changed in the business which has led to the improvement? And also some color on segment-wise collections, how they have been in the last 2-3 months?
See, there's nothing on the business side that changed. I think it's more of a focus from our entire team on collections, including the business team was also focused on the collections and probably the outreach. And I think one thing that has helped us is that our ticket sizes are so granular, and most of our customers are involved in trading and services where their cash flows have come back. They were able to restart their businesses much faster and generate decent cash flows. I think that and the focus. And I've been repeatedly talking in my interactions with your fraternity. I was mentioning that in a business that is so granular, it is not disbursements that is important, it is collections. This is a collections business and not a lending business. That's what I've been talking about for the last 2 years, that in a granular business which is so granular, your back end has to be very strong, and I think that is what has helped us in this situation.
Right. And some color on the segment-wise collections, if you could.
Segment-wise, if you ask me, on SME, we have moved from 57 to 65 in August and 93 in September. And two-wheeler, we have moved from 93 to, I mean, August was at 93 and September also was at 93. These are the main two products which contribute to about 80% of our portfolio.
And our trade finance also, we have
If I may just squeeze in one more question, despite the very strong improvement in the SME business or the SAF business, the disbursement continues to be very poor. So, I mean, what is your outlook on this segment?
Last quarter, we did about 20 crores of disbursement, right? From there, for us to disburse close to
364 crores.
360 crores.
Yeah. During this quarter, 360.
We did about 360 crores during this quarter, which will actually probably grow by another 50-60% in the next quarter. See, here one reason why it's slow is we are also cautious while lending. So there are a lot more, I would say, a lot more rejections. Nothing. I mean, there is enough in the pipeline, but we are being a little cautious on disbursement, which we will be. We will continue to be cautious even in the next couple of quarters. But it will grow. We are slowly opening up all the branches. So I think this quarter we should see at least another 50% improvement in the disbursement.
And SME, though we have done 364 crores during last quarter, for the month of October alone, we have done 250 crores. October is done 250 crores of disbursement or SME. So it's picking up.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. A reminder to the participants, anyone who wishes to ask a question may press star and 1 at this time. The next question is from the line of Umang Shah from HSBC Securities. Please go ahead.
Yeah, good morning. Congratulations on a good quarter and thanks for the opportunity. Sir, I've got a couple of questions. One is, if you could give us some color on your pre-owned two-wheeler business in terms of the customer segmentation, the average ticket sizes, and how different would be the customer segment compared to our new two-wheeler loan customer segment.
On the pre-owned two-wheeler, it's again the customer segment is not too different. It's about 60-70% of the customers are still self-employed professionals, or self-employed people. Average ticket sizes will be between 30 to 40,000, depending on the kind of a vehicle that you're funding. Typically, we are funding vehicles that are up to 3-year-old. This is done through branch network, existing to existing customers, marketing through existing customers, and also there are dealers who sell pre-owned two-wheelers. We are working through the pre-owned two-wheeler dealers.
Sir, just a related question. Average ticket size of 30 to 40,000 for a 3-year-old two-wheeler. Does it kind of really imply a higher loan to value or a relatively higher risk profile for that particular customer that we are taking up, or how should we look at this?
Yeah.
And how big this business could become, let's say, over the next 2 to 3 year period?
Let me put this on the first question. If I'm funding a 3-year-old Royal Enfield, the purchase price would be around 60,000. If it's a Activa, again it will be around 40 to 50,000. So basically, see today that as I said, between 30 to 40, depending on the vehicle, which vehicle customer is buying. So and the condition of the vehicle. So it's it's in line with the market. Particularly tier 2, tier 3 towns, it's in line with the market.
Okay.
We don't have much of this business in the tier 1 towns. 1. 2 is how big is the market? I don't know. Probably we should be looking at anywhere. Conservatively, we are looking at between 3,000 to 4,000 crores of disbursement a year in this segment. going forward, at least for the next 1 year.
Sure. And how different would be the yields compared to the new two-wheeler business?
It will be around anywhere from 3 to 4% higher.
Sure. Perfect. Sir, my second question is related to what would be our cumulative sanctions and disbursements under the ECLGS scheme?
We are, so far, I think we have done some 50 crores. The total would be around about 150 crores. In the sense, September will be around 30 to 40 crores. The rest of it,
so you mean the total? So you mean the total sanctions would be about 150 crores?
50 crores.
Okay. All right. Sure. And my last question is, sir, how should we look at potential restructuring in the coming quarter? Which segments would drive that? And on the overall book basis, what would be the maximum potential restructuring that we could expect?
See, I've already answered that in my opening remarks, but as I said, no, it will be, we are looking at, I think it will not be more than 1% of our book. And potential sectors, as I already mentioned, would be residential hotels, schools, standalone hospitals, and probably 4 or 5 customers who are involved in real estate.
Okay. All right. Perfect. Those were my questions. Thank you so much, sir, and wish you all the best.
Thank you. A reminder to the participants, anyone who wishes to ask a question may press star and 1 at this time. The next question is from the line of Ashwin Kumar Balasubramaniam from HSBC Asset Management. Please go ahead.
Hi. Hello. Yeah. So basically, on this gold loan side, I just wanted to kind of understand that like your AUM has increased by about 3-4% year on year. But if you compare it to, let's say, to some of the gold loan firms which are there, the increase is lower. Now, what I understand is a lot of the disbursements tend to get renewed at a higher rate normally. So I just wanted to understand if your segment is slightly different, or the tenor generally tends to be different, or if the proportion of renewals normally tends to be slightly different for you.
Most of my gold loan is customers who we are number one is that we are funding gold loan majorly in 5 states only as of now. We have not gone across India, pan-India. We have opened up about 20 branches in the north in the last post-COVID. So that's basically confined to South and Maharashtra is where we are doing this business. South again excluding Kerala. So that's AP, Telangana, Tamil Nadu, Karnataka and Maharashtra is where we have this business, number one. Number two, this is started with basically because when we were co-locating with our chit fund businesses, we started this gold loan because there was demand from the existing customers. So most of the customers in our gold loan business are customers who have either an exposure with us or who have had a dealings with us. So we do not advertise. So we are not. We do not have too much of a walk-in segment of customers in this business. So our yields are slightly lower than the market because this is basically most of them are recurring customers who keep coming to you for their gold loan needs. Tenor is normal about 150, 180 is between 150 to 180 days. It varies between 150 to 180 days tenor. As far as incremental is concerned, if you don't lend as per the market, obviously customer will go to your competitor. But I would say on the total book, our LTVs will be something around 60% as of today's rates. The incremental lending that we are doing is around 70% of the LTV.
Okay. Thank you. And one question in terms of the collection efficiency. So, I mean, this would also include some of the previous month collections and so on, right? The September number which you mentioned. But if we were to just look at the number of customers who've not paid like even a single EMI or so on for this 6-month period, how much would that be?
See, I already mentioned earlier also, about 182,000 customers have not paid a single installment during the moratorium period, out of which close to 122,000 customers have come back and paid in the month of September. So about 58,000 odd customers have not paid a single installment, who have not paid a single installment during the moratorium period, have not paid in September also. But again, majority of them have come back and paid in October.
Okay. And how much would this be in AUM terms?
1.5%.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Rikin Shah from Credit Suisse. Please go ahead.
Thank you for the opportunity. Just some data keeping questions. Firstly, just wanted to understand what would be the stage 2 loans as a percentage of overall for the current quarter, previous quarter and a year ago. Second one, just wanted to check the collections that were made during the moratorium. Were they adjusted against the principal due or against the DPD as of 29th February? And the third question was, sir, you mentioned the collection efficiency across SME and two-wheeler. What would be the normal collection efficiency pre-COVID in these segments? Thank you.
I'll ask my colleague to answer this.
With reference to stage collection, compared to June and September, is all around stage 2 is around 4 to 5%. What is the second question you asked? Can you repeat?
So the second question was regarding the collections that were made during the moratorium. So were they adjusted against? So what were those collections adjusted against? Against the principal remaining for the customer, or any past arrears that were standing as of 29th February?
Yeah. Understood. So what we do is the collection is on the basis of. Suppose if the customer has not paid January, February and June, then it will be, first it will be adjusted from the earlier installment. Suppose 20, 21, 22 with earlier installment. So the earlier installment will be first adjusted and then subsequent installment will be adjusted. What is the third question?
Sorry, so the third question was regarding the normal collection efficiency in SME and two-wheeler, which was 93% as of September. So what was the normal level?
Okay, the pre-COVID level with the collection efficiency is around 95%. Now post-COVID is 95. Now it's 93. Just 2%.
There's a gap of 2%.
Gap of 2% compared to the pre-COVID.
Okay, got it. And on the second question, if I understood it correctly, you mentioned that they were adjusted against the current EMI that were raised during the moratorium. But then because there was no billing, would you be able to just repeat again?
What he was saying is, if the account has an arrear pre-February, February 29th, it is adjusted to the arrear.
Okay, got it.
Any payment made during the moratorium period, if there was an arrear as on February 29th, it is adjusted to that DPD.
Okay, perfect. Very clear.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Nidesh Jain from Investec Capital. Please go ahead.
Thanks for the opportunity, sir. So firstly, on the growth in SME, since the collections are trending the collection trends are very encouraging, what is the reason for being cautious in SME even in coming quarters?
See, let me put it this way. For the quarter, as Chandrasekhar has already mentioned, we did about 364 crores of disbursement, out of which close to 200 crores was disbursed only in the month of September. So, right?
Yeah.
250 crores.
So, sorry. And current month close, October, we have already done about 250 crores. When we did 365 crores of in the entire quarter, we did about 250 crores. So, as I said, we are not shying away from the business, but we are being cautious. For us to reach the pre-COVID level, probably it will take us 1 or 2 more quarters.
Sure. So in that light, sir, how do you see AUM growth panning out in FY22?
I think let's talk about FY22 quarter 4.
Sure, sure. And in terms of collection, can you share the percentage of AUM where you have received only one EMI or less as of end of October? But on what percentage of AUM you would have received less than one EMI or less as of end of October in last 8 months?
Sorry, I didn't get you. Can you repeat the question again?
So can you share the percentage of AUM where you have received one EMI or less in last 8 months from the morat, including September and October?
It was already mentioned, no? 1.5%.
Yeah.
1.5% is the customer where you have not received anything, but there would be customers who have paid one EMI or partial EMI.
1.5% is the total customers who have not paid even a single installment during the morat.
During the morat, including September, right?
No. September, about 1,20,000 of them have come back and paid in September. That's what I told.
Sure.
1.5% of the customers, which is 1.82 lakhs, and which is equivalent to about 1.5% of AUM. About 1.2 lakhs of them have come back and paid.
Sir, I'll put this question like this. Totally around 12,56,000 customers have taken moratorium. Out of that, only 58,000 customers have. Yeah. Other customers have come back.
What would be the number of customers who have paid partial EMI, less than one EMI? Or you have not collected any partial EMI from customers?
One EMI, normally, we don't collect partial EMI. There are not too many customers. Our EMIs are small.
Okay, sir. Okay. That's it from my side, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Chirag Sureka from DSP Mutual Fund. Please go ahead.
Sir, good morning. I wanted to ask about securitization. Whenever confidence in collection efficiency goes up, securitization also goes up. So are you seeing any trend in demand for securitization? And in the related question which I have is, are you looking at co-origination or any kind of model which may be useful for increasing the rate of growth, because that's what many NBFCs are exploring.
Yeah, with reference to securitization, I think we have done one deal last quarter. I think this month of October also we have done one securitization transaction. And we may do around 1,200 crores of securitization during this. But in securitization, there is a lot of demand, especially on the two-wheeler product. And even on the SME product, we have one sanction we have. So securitization is coming back. We will continue to do every quarter couple of 2 or 3 securitizations, maybe around close to around 1,000 crores going forward.
There is interest in the market.
Yeah, there is interest in the market, both on the two-wheeler and SME product, both the products. Co-origination we are discussing. I think we may come back, maybe in discussing with a couple of people. We will come back in a month or two.
Sir, great, sir. If I can sneak in one question on the broader economy itself, are you seeing a lot of demand for new two-wheelers? Is the dealer inventory very high, or is your financing as usual, or is it lower than usual?
Yeah, October has been as usual. We have funded more, as I said, we have funded more than 100,000 vehicles for the month of October.
This is new vehicles.
We have to see how it pans out in November during the Diwali season. Typically, these 2 months are bumper months for both the manufacturer, dealer, and the financier.
Okay, sir. South, is it more during the Pongal Sankranti time, or is it?
South, basically Tamil Nadu and Andhra Pradesh, it is during the Pongal time.
Okay.
The rest of the country, it is Dasra and Diwali.
Okay, sir. So the 1 lakh number you said was for new two-wheelers, no, sir?
New two-wheelers.
Okay, excellent. Sir, congratulations and wish you all the best.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Sagar Gopani, an individual investor. Please go ahead.
Yeah, good morning, sir. Just wanted to understand, the ROEs in the housing finance business have ranged from 4% to 16% in the last 4 quarters. So what should be the steady state ROE for this business?
think it should be around 3.5, between 3.5 to 4.
No, sir, this is ROE, not the ROA. Return on equity is what I'm referring to.
Okay. I think it'll probably, it should be around the 16%.
16% is a steady state. And sir, I see the branch network is also growing. So is there any way where we can, leverage the existing branches of, the non-housing business, or, these has to be kept separately?
See, they are operating, they operate in a few locations already coexisting branches. So the new branches that we have talked about will also be co-located. They will not be standalone branches. Unless the branch reaches a volume justifies, they will continue to co-locate with either Shriram Cities branches or Shriram Transport branches.
So, sir, then the question is, what stops you from, like the non-housing finance business has, lot more branches than the housing finance business. So, what stops you for actually utilizing those branches? And it's just about adding 2-3 people, right?
No, it's not just that. See, you need to have a total monitoring mechanism and also a collection mechanism there. It's not just putting 2 people there and selling. You're not selling a FMCG product. You're selling loans. So you need to have a total paraphernalia there. You need to have your credit team. You need to have your business team, collections team, and ops team. So, and also the potential. So they'll grow. There is no point in spreading yourself too thin. In fact, last year also I mentioned in the call that we are now focusing on just 7-8 states, and we want to go deep in these 7-8 states. Once we achieve a substantial volume in these states, then only we will look at expanding and moving out of these states.
And sir, what is the level of business that you can do from these 8 states? Is there some ballpark number that you can
The
share?
potential you can do 20,000 crores AUM minimum.
For your, potential for Shriram Housing Finance.
Yeah.
Okay, understood. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Sanket Chheda from B&K Securities. Please go ahead.
No, sir, my question was answered.
Thank you. A reminder to the participants, anyone who wishes to ask a question may press star and 1 at this time. The next question is from the line of Kunal Shah from ICICI Securities. Please go ahead.
Yeah. So in terms of the provisioning, given that we already have the contingency buffer of 700 odd crores, and even when we look at stage 1, stage 2, and stage 3, on stage 1 and 2 we are covered up to almost like 4.4, and even like stage 3 at 50 odd %. So what would be the requirement going forward in terms of the provisioning? Because overall we are still saying that there are hardly 1.5% customers, not more than 1% restructuring. So how should we look at the overall credit cost?
Chandru?
Yeah. So since we have the collections in the month of, as we told you, that September 98%, and even in the month of October we are having a good collection around close to 95%. Going forward, we expect this provision, we may not require any extra provisioning is what we think at this point of time. And credit cost we expect to stabilize between 2.8 to 3% over the next 1 or 2 quarters.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah. So overall maybe 2.8 to 3 odd % kind of a credit cost over 2 quarters. Yeah. So that really helps. And if we have to look at it in terms of the flow from stage 2 in general, so you highlighted stage 2 is 4 to 5 odd %. So what is generally the flow into NPLs from this, and post maybe September, should we see a spike in GNPLs in Q3, and would that be large enough, or maybe that suggests that it will not be a significant number?
Yeah, we expect the gross NPA to be at the same level because of the collection in the month of October also is very encouraging, and with festival season and now even the SME book, the collection percentage has gone up. So all the products we are able to collect between 92 to 95%, and overall we are able to do 95%. So we expect there won't be much movement from stage 2 to stage 3 is what we think at this point of time.
Sure. And in terms of the mix, if we have to look at it, you clearly said that on the business side, business loan lending side, we are not shying away as such from the opportunities, just being cautious. But overall, the way we had seen earlier, business loans and personal loans used to drive it, and now they are going slow. So at what moment or what would be the indicators to suggest that, okay, now these are the segments wherein we will start growing, and maybe the skew which is there towards two-wheelers, gold loan, or maybe the pre-owned two-wheelers, that is more structural, and this is what we should expect in terms of our overall AUM mix?
The AUM mix will not alter substantially. It could be a 1 to 2%, at best could be a 1 to 2% change. And as I've already mentioned, what we are looking at is some, the data that we are seeing on the GST collections and what is happening in the market would probably drive going forward. Second is, there are certain sectors we are still shying away, and unless we see a substantial improvement in the sectors, we will not go and lend in those sectors. That's specifically anything to do, any businesses that are dependent on construction industry. We are still going slow. So probably we'll wait for a couple of more quarters before we actually take a call. We would like to see data for a couple of more quarters before we go and fund those businesses that are dependent on the construction industry. Otherwise, we are, as of now, we are lending to most of the customer segments that we used to do pre-COVID. So as I mentioned, October has been really encouraging. We have done almost close to 70% of the quarter disbursement, second quarter disbursement in the month of October. So as I said, so I may not touch those numbers, but it won't be too far off. We would be touching about 70-80% plus of pre-COVID levels in this quarter. From there, we will be taking quarter by quarter.
Sure. And just one last question on, say, in terms of the liability side. So compared to where it was, say, 6-12 months back, okay, in terms of the tightness which was there, how would you rate now, be it in terms of the various sub-segments, if you have to look at it in terms of the term loans, or be it in terms of the raising of NCDs or the off-balance sheet transactions? Has it eased a lot for us now where we are? What is the comfort level? And when we would say that, okay, on the liquidity is no more, or maybe the liability mobilization is not at all an issue and it has more or less got addressed?
Yeah, actually, if you see our liability side, we have totally moved from the short-term borrowings to long-term borrowing. That is point number one. And we are quite comfortable. Even this quarter, we are able to mobilize 3,000 crores. And on the liability buffer, we have more than 3,000 crores of liquidity with us, and we have SLR investment of 700 crores. So we are quite liquidity. We are very comfortable, and we are able to raise money through securitization. Term loans, bank term loans are coming, and we are also getting at lower cost. The incremental borrowing for the last quarter was at a lower cost. And we are getting good retail fixed deposit from our customers. We mobilized 850 crores of retail deposits, which is all about 3 years money at close to around 9%. So retail deposit, we are able to do a couple of NCDs. We have securitization, we have done it, term loans. So the money is easily available in the market at this point of time. And even the month of October, we have picked up couple of, we still have 3-4 sanctions on hand. So liability side, I think we are totally in control. So we don't have any challenges on the liability front to meet our liabilities or to growth purpose.
Okay. So on bank loan and NCDs, at what rate we would be able to raise it?
And
incremental?
Borrowing cost is around 9%. And NCD, we are doing at lesser cost, but overall cost of borrowing during the current quarter is around 9%. which is much
Okay.
lower than what we have done compared to last year.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Karthikeyan from CS Advisors. Please go ahead.
Sir, one question on your used two-wheelers business. Can you talk about the role of the OEMs in this? Are they helping you in terms of refurbishing, the dealers are being involved? How exactly does this whole thing work? Some additional details would be interesting, sir.
Sorry, I didn't get you. Can you repeat the question?
I was saying, in the used two-wheelers business, loans business, what is the role that the OEMs themselves are playing? Say, for example, in terms of refurbishing these vehicles and so on, providing some kind of guarantee to the customer, and or the dealer network, for example, some additional details on that would be interesting. And you said only up to 3 years old vehicles, you said, right?
Oh, yes.
Right.
See, unlike the cars, OEMs are not too much involved in the refurbishing of the two-wheelers and selling them. Only Honda and Hero did try some, but it's nothing much, nothing substantial. Most of these vehicles are purchased by used two-wheeler dealers. They themselves furbish it and sell it. So your True Value or your program from your Honda or Hyundai, you don't have these used two-wheeler showroom, like the used car showrooms, True Value, things like True Value and all. You don't have, in two-wheeler, you don't have that kind of an organized setup.
Yes. Do you see an increasing trend, sir? Because I hear similar small instances across much lower value vehicles also, two-wheeler side. Therefore, I'm asking you this.
As the ticket sizes are going up in two-wheeler, it makes sense for the manufacturers to do this so that, it also helps their brand.
Yes.
We are also talking to OEMs on this. We'll have to see how it pans out.
Right. Okay. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you. A reminder to the participants, anyone who wishes to ask a question may press star and 1 at this time. As there are no further questions, I now hand the conference over to Mr. Kunal Shah for closing comments.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chakravarti and Mr. Chandrasekhar for giving your insights and sharing the outlook. And thanks all the participants for being there on the call. Have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you, Kunal. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of ICICI Securities Limited, that concludes this conference. Thank you all for joining us, and you may now disconnect your lines.